afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First off, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present, and thank you to the organizers for inviting me and affording me this opportunity. My name is Ibrahim Adam, and I am an academic based at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. I'm also the founder of a company called GAMIFIED, where I offer educational technology and gamification consulting to my clients. This afternoon, we're going to chat about gamification in the library. And I'd like to start off discussions with a quick reflection on the theme of this particular conference and how gamification relates to this, and my reflections on exactly what the theme is all about. I'd like to start off with connecting. So in terms of connecting, as librarians, the role is to connect people, it's to connect with people, it's to connect people to each other, it's to connect them to information. It's about ensuring that we connect to people so we can enhance their lives. If you look at the creating function, ladies and gentlemen, the creating component to me is interpreted as creating the spaces, online and physical, that allow people to flourish and grow. It's about creating the opportunities for our students to create as well. It's for creating the opportunity for them to enhance their literacy, to enhance their research skills. And it's about positioning the library as a resource that is useful and necessary for our students. The last phase is transforming, ladies and gentlemen, which to me is transforming the lives of our students, transforming the lives of our teachers. It's engaging with them through the library and transforming how they receive information, how they receive library services going into the future as well. I'm going to use this as my basis for our discussion today, and I hope that we have a lot of fun. First off, I'd like to start off discussing the reality of life in the library. Okay. So the reality of life in the library, ladies and gentlemen, as we see it today, is like this little boy over here. When you tell people about the library, all they think of is books. Literacy in our country is an all-time low despite our best efforts. And we need to enhance the proposition. We've been continuously trying to do so, right? But we have to constantly seek new ways to enhance the proposition, the value proposition of the library, so that our students can actually engage, to overcome the boredom and make the library a place of fun and learning. Okay. As they get older, the problem doesn't change. It simply has pressure placed on them that they need to pass in order to get into university. So they will engage with the content, albeit in still a bored manner, as much as we try to make it entertaining and useful for them. On the other hand, these same students, right, from a young age, if we take them, put a mobile device in the hand, that is the reaction we get. As they grow older, they start collaborating with their friends. As age progresses with them, it starts becoming a pastime. It's something they even do in the holidays, right? They play games, they engage on social media, they collaborate. If you put a PlayStation in your library, you're going to get a queue of people queuing outside, and you're probably going to have to turn a lot of them away simply because they want to play games. As they grow older, it doesn't change, and it remains almost a lifelong thing. Okay? So ladies and gentlemen, how do we currently fix the problem of the library? Currently, there are a number of approaches. One of them is to shut down everything. So no technology allowed, no laptops, no phones, nothing of that nature. You come here, you read, and you engage. We'll teach you the skills, and we'll send you home. Another approach, which is a bit more in tune with the technology nowadays, is we provide the devices, we provide the experiences, we provide the Wi-Fi to our students. We lock it down, and we tell them you may use this particular technology to learn. You can use it in the library. You can only use it to learn. We'll prevent you from using any apps, any games, any social media that you're not supposed to be using, especially whilst at school. But the technology is available to you. You have access to the resources, and go for it. Okay. What happens then is that students will search, because of their motivation to engage with games, to engage with other apps, to engage on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat and whatever the case might be. They search for ways to unblock the devices. They'll unlock them. They will download movies, they will download games, they'll download apps, they'll go on Facebook and Twitter where they're not supposed to be, all of this during school time. It's become a cat and mouse. In essence, we are the Tom, and their attention span and their attention is the Jerry. It's difficult to engage students nowadays. You put the technology there. There are many facets of this. It can be done correctly. It is being done correctly in many places. But at the end of the day, there are students who are still playing the cat and mouse game. Will keep locking and they'll keep bypassing. How do we overcome this challenge? What I would like to position, ladies and gentlemen, to us is something called gamification. So the argument behind this is such that we have this technology that students dedicate hours of their lives to. They'll get up at 3 in the morning to level up if you tell them to do so in a game, and they'll have a lot of fun doing it. They look forward to doing it, they'll discuss it, they'll be so motivated. It's unbelievable. Now, the argument of gamification is that why don't we take these very facets that motivate our students, bring that into our classroom, and engage them through these technologies. So it's sort of like when you speak to someone, speaking to them in their own language will connect with them a lot more. So in the same way, to connect with our students, why don't we use the technology that students are familiar with? Okay, but let's define gamification quickly just so that we have clarity on what gamification actually is. So it's the integration of game design, game mechanics, and game dynamics. So that is the designing of games and what drives games and what moves us forward. Things like points, leaderboards, badges, storylines, progress bars, and so on. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. Integrating these things into the real world in order to motivate particular behavior. Now, notice earlier the problem I described was regarding motivation. A lot of the problems in learning is regarding can be attributed to motivation. So gamification looks at how do we use what motivates people, apply that into the real world, use that in the real world to motivate them to do something that they might not be as motivated to do. So let us expand a bit on gamification. And a friend of mine we chat regularly on Facebook is an author on actionable gamification, where he looks at gamification as human-focused design. So it's not just points, badges, and leaderboards, but it's a human-focused design, so designing with the human in mind. And there are 8 core drivers. So these 8 core drivers can be divided into segments: the left brain and the right brain. This is not the physiological brain that we refer to, but rather the left-hand side, which is to do with the logic, the ownership, accomplishment, avoiding scarcity. It's extrinsic motivators. People are motivated by extrinsic factors, versus the right brain, which is things like social influence, hanging out with one's peers, one's friends, is an intrinsic thing. Feeling a sense of empowerment and relatedness is intrinsic. And avoiding unpredictability or enjoying the suspense accompanying unpredictability is an intrinsic emotion. So it looks at these core drivers and divides them up into these 2 halves, right? When I say quadrants, I'm talking about white hat and black hat gamification. So white hat gamification invokes positive emotion in order to motivate, whilst black hat gamification invokes negative emotion in order to motivate students. You can choose to go either full left brain, full white hat, or full right brain, full black hat, or whatever the case, any combination of these 4 elements. But in essence, a good game encompasses all in some way or the other. You may use black hat to re-engage somebody who's lost engagement, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Another author is Carl Kapp, who talks about gamification being rethinking of learning design. So if you combine these 2 philosophies together, it's not about redesigning your content, it's repackaging your content in a way that motivates people. If you marry these 2 together, ladies and gentlemen, that is in essence what gamification of learning is all about, okay? And if we go back in time, we look at what Chuck Conrad, which is actually one of the initial authors on gamification, though he didn't know it, right? They call him the grandfather of gamification. He defined what makes a good game. Now let's apply this to good teaching practice. The 5 categories are clearly defined goals, keeping of score and scorecards, okay? More frequent feedback to players within a game, a high degree of personal choice of methods, and consistent coaching. Now, if you look at this within the context of learning, clearly defined goals can be seen as learning objectives. Scorekeeping and scorecards is the assessments we provide. However, gamification allows us to provide that feedback more real time. So we engage people at a more granular level to ensure that the engagement that they have with a particular course or coursework is sustained. More frequent feedback is something provided in games. We need to provide that within the classroom. We do that. We compliment students, so we guide them along and say, no, you've got that wrong. A high degree of personal choice is to do different pedagogies within teaching. You can look at it that way, different teaching approaches to cater for the different needs of your students, allowing students to explore with different resources, making different resources available to them as well, and allowing them to choose which resources work well for them. Consistent coaching has to do with actually allowing people to win, allowing people to progress, growing them up as it goes along. So this can be tied very closely in terms of games and teaching. In terms of gamification, does it work? Gamification has been applied in a variety of industries, including learning, and we'll talk about that in a second. Before that, though, I just want to reflect on the eBucks program by the Turquoise Bank, right? I'm not sure if I can say the name, but the Turquoise Bank, ladies and gentlemen, provides a rewards program which I'm a member of, and it's influenced me to not go to an ATM at least not even once in the last year. I don't withdraw cash anyway. I prefer to use my card. I prefer to use my credit card versus my check card because I get more eBucks. It's truly changed the manner in which I bank. I use the rewards as well. I buy a lot of my gadgets using those rewards. The eBucks program has really changed the way in which I bank. In essence, what the objective for the bank itself is is that less infrastructure is required because everything's done electronically. And it seems to work. Those of us who have e-bucks would testify to this as well. If you understand the program and you use it, you will get rewarded. And at the end of the day, the bank will save. In the same way, ladies and gentlemen, in terms of healthcare, the Discovery Vitality program is about ensuring that people remain fit, so the medical aid scheme doesn't have to pay as many medical bills, right? So they launched the Apple Watch, where you get rewarded by being active. So the more exercise you do, they set some goals for you on a weekly basis. If you meet your goals, that pays towards your Apple Watch. So the benefit of this is that I know of a lot of people in the medical profession and outside who have got an Apple Watch through Discovery. So all they do is they exercise and they meet the goals, which they are doing anyway, but they're now doing it at a more dedicated level, and they get a free Apple Watch. The benefit for Discovery is that they have healthier members, the liability of the scheme is greatly reduced, and they have a healthier population. They're just two examples, right? But does it work for learning? And this is where we gamified. We gamified a particular course that was an offer, an honors level course, an IT course where students were going to embark into the working world the following year. Most of them were going to join corporates. So we adopted a corporate storyline. We had the aesthetics accompanying it. We called the students, we onboarded them, we introduced them to gamification in the game, and we let the course run. All the way from login, right through to the engagements, through to the communications we had with students, all followed a corporate storyline. We didn't call them dear students, we used the word dear colleagues to allow the storyline to flow naturally. I just want to show you some of the elements that we used. We tried to put as many as we could to understand how they work. So we used badges. Badges were hidden. Badges were limited. Badges had deadlines. Badges were known. Badges carried 5 points all the way up to 30. They grew with the storyline. If you started off as an intern, there were intern type badges all the way through to an expert. At the end of the game, the winner was the CEO, and we gave badges for that as well. We had a leaderboard which showed the top 10. People were constantly striving to be there. We had progress bars to allow people to strategize as well. In terms of the corporate world, there are certain characteristics they look for in a corporate citizen. So we had soft skills badges. If you showed teamwork, if you shared a reward with someone, perhaps you got, or you showed professionalism, you received a badge for that, and you received a letter for your CV. You were then able to take that letter into any interview from senior lecturers at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, and that would allow you to gain some traction. If you receive some points through your badges as well, you could take those badges and exchange them for extensions on assessments and so on. We had a lot of feedback provided to the students by the platform and ourselves. When tasks were completed, there were locked tasks that they needed to unlock as well. And that led to the whole discovery phase. People were discovering different parts of the game, and people were given resources to actually progress through the game as the course progressed as well. These are some of the badges that were available. Students were awarded these. When they logged on, they got information about that. The course is fairly social. It's been offered through Facebook previously, so we wanted to preserve that. So there are social learning taking place and badges associated with your posts. If people liked it or you posted a certain number of posts, you received rewards and recognition for that as well. We tried to make it as comprehensive as we possibly could. And what did we find? So I'm going to sum this up in a single slide. Firstly, we found that gamification enhanced understanding of academic work, developed people's self-confidence, kept them motivated, and pushed them to give that little bit more. And people felt that gamification should be used in more courses within their program. Whilst a lot of the feedback we received was positive, we did ask students to provide some negative feedback as well. They did provide some out of their own will, and I want to share some of that with you. So some of them felt that the leaderboard should not be shown. So it's got to do with what motivates people. Some people are not motivated by the leaderboard. Some people don't understand how they miss some of the badges. And this leads to something we'll talk about called onboarding later. And onboarding has to do with introducing people to your game. Okay? And maybe some of these students may have missed that, so that led to them not understanding. Some felt deadlines were tight, especially given commitments with other courses. However, we maintained the deadlines that we had within the gamified course and found that students adapted, and the momentum was kept up, and students who adapted, and in part of the reason for that was to actually receive the rewards and recognition. They also wanted to know how badges and points were allocated, and they didn't prefer the hidden rewards. They wanted to know all of this upfront so they could actually pursue this, right? Again, it's got to do with the different motivators that different people had. The positive, though, was that people were willing to tell us what drove them positively and what drove them negatively. So how can it be brought into the library? And I'm going to use the theme of connect, create, and transform in order to position this. These are just some examples, some domains of the library that I've decided to just chat about today. And I'd like to take all of these processes and all of these different themes into the discussion that we have after this. So I want to start off, before we get into that, with talking about the activated classroom, which is a model that Dr. Craig Bloat has put together. And it's got to do with taking students from simply consuming content through to creation and chaos, right? So creating of their own content and allowing chaos to happen in the classroom. And we use this in our courses where we gave students a list of resources, allow them to the opportunity to curate that, to actually put it together, present it to their colleagues. We then engaged in conversation with them around it, allowed them to converse with each other. We corrected them and they corrected each other as time went along, all the way through to where they created their own websites and their own videos or whatever the presentations, whatever the case might be, in order to actually share the knowledge back. And we assess them based on this. I just want to share one experience. We actually set up at a coffee shop when we were running one of our conversation correction sessions, where it was done online entirely through a chat room, and students engaged. Our location didn't matter. The class continued as normal. Now, this particular inclusion is there because when we talk of spaces within a library, it's not necessarily about the physical space. There's a lot more to space in the library than just the physical space. And I'd like to actually make a slight tweak to Dr. Bloat's model, and I'd like to actually call it the activated library. So whilst we talk about the different themes of this conference and we position gamification within that, let us refer back to this, right? Keep this top of mind, taking students from consumption through to creation and chaos. So let's talk connecting. Okay, so to connect with students is vital. I think that's the first step in actually having anything done. So there's a continuum I'd like to talk about. Firstly, connection with teachers. So teachers need to prep, they need to get ready. We serve as libraries, we serve as a vital resource for that. So you need to connect with teachers. And one easy way to gamify is to make the resources available, but have additional bonus resources for the teachers who engage more. The teachers who give feedback to you to enhance your offering to the school, right? To enhance your offering to the institution, to whatever organization you're working with. The next step, ladies and gentlemen, is students. As I said, it's important we connect to them. Connecting to them can be done in class. The easiest form is leaderboards. Leaderboards for reading, leaderboards for research, leaderboards for writing, leaderboards for presenting information in an easy to understand manner, leaderboards for collaborating with their peers. It can be digital, it can be paper based. Do bear in mind the people at the bottom of the leaderboard do need special care. They do need that extra coaching to actually carry them up to the top. But it's something that can be done very, very easily, technology driven or not. In terms of information, ladies and gentlemen, the information superhighway is a reality. We need to connect our teachers and students with information. It's important, right? And we need to enable them to connect with the information in a seamless manner. So we can actually have these competitions where people do research. We can give them data and say, sift through information, give us the holistic stuff that we need. It's something that's very, very useful. You can reward them based on that. You can reward them with additional time on assignments, assessments, resources, and so on, solely for developing the skills that are required to conduct research. It's important now for them in their schooling careers and as teachers. It's also important for students who embark on academic careers later. Okay, the last part I'd like to talk about in terms of connecting is with parents. And I'll talk about a solution that actually brings parents into the game as well. So it allows them to monitor the progress of their kids through an online platform. And based on the progress and the rewards that their kids are getting in a gamified course, they can then motivate them from home. And I think this is crucial. South Africa has a problem with academic literacy. It has a problem with the reading in the country. And I think it's important that parents play a role, and bringing them into the game would also build a competitive spirit within them for the sake of their kids. Okay. In terms of creating, ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk on a continuum as well. Firstly, the physical spaces. We can have themed spaces that follow a particular storyline, but more than the theme, it's important to actually have outcomes. So based on the storyline that we've introduced in the library, in the physical space, you do some reading or some writing or whatever the case might be as a student, and we reward you based on that. So it's not just about experiencing the storyline, it's about rewarding you based on your takeaways from that experience. You can have a discussion about it, and as people participate in the discussion and bring about prudent and crucial points, you reward them for that. Online spaces, we've got LMSs. It's being used widely across the world, but I'd like to talk about the online spaces that students are more familiar with, things like Facebook and Twitter and so on. So what I prefer to do actually is to run my courses on places like Facebook and Edmodo and all of these platforms, because students are familiar with them. It's important to talk to students in a language that they're familiar with. And then you can integrate badges into this, right? So you issue a challenge and a quest. You put up a post. I challenge each of you to actually go out and find this information, put it into a succinct form, come to class and let's discuss it. And based on that, there will be a reward. But you don't tell them what the reward might be. So there's that whole unpredictability coming into play, right? The scarcity, unpredictability, there's a sense of accomplishment once they've achieved it. They come into class, they receive a reward, but the reward is posted back in the online space. So you give them the badge on Facebook. You don't go and post it onto their wall, post it into the group, use things like Badgeville or Open Badge through Mozilla. where they can actually share that on their profiles. If they're high school students, maybe LinkedIn is something you want to start introducing to them. They can share that there and allow these badges to get more traction than just the classroom. Okay, it's important that your peers acknowledge you and you feel acknowledged within the classroom, but you can take it out through the power of these online spaces. The last thing is the creation of resources and multimedia. We need to drive students to create. So competitions to create works of art, or whether it's visual art, or whether it's text-based art, whether it's authoring pieces, whether it's actually creating experiences as a group or individually, we can get the collaboration going and reward that in terms of a competition type endeavor. The reward doesn't have to be something that's money driven. It could be extensions on loans, extensions on assignments. It could be various other aspects related to activities within the library. Do bear in mind that when we make these creation spaces available to students, and we create these spaces for students, we need to make it accessible to them outside of library hours. So at break time and at lunchtime and so on, it needs to be accessible to them. That's when they can harness that intrinsic motivation that we are trying to drive. Lastly, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to talk about transforming. Again, on a continuum, we need to transform how information literacy is delivered. We are living in the era of the search engine. Everybody Googles it, all the way from kids. I was once asked a question from my daughter. I didn't know. She's like, Google it. And she's 4.5. Okay. So information is delivered and information literacy is delivered in a very different way now as it was even 5 years ago. So we need to be cognizant of that and make these resources available and make the technologies available for our students and equip them to use these search engines and these resources that have been made available. We need to transform how collaboration happens. So collaboration previously was around the table, right? I'd like us to think in the context of a virtual table. So actually connecting students with students from other institutions and even other countries, right? It's being done at university level as well, connecting them around story, connecting them around particular books, particular resources, getting them to engage with each other, obviously moderated for safety and security's sake, but we need to transform how collaboration happens. As our students get into the working world, there's going to be a demand to know how to collaborate remotely. So I think it's a good skill that we introduce this to students, and through the power of storyline, through the power of story, we can actually drive this a long way. The last thing is something called the ubiquitous library, and it's how library services are being delivered into the future. Everybody has a library in their pocket, okay? And we need to harness this particular capabilities. Students are using it, maybe not to the extent that they could be. We need to equip them to use it. We need to make the resources, like, for example, the ebooks that they might want to access, the websites they might want to access, the video they might need to access, make it available to them in one common platform, a common space that they can access on any device and move across and access all of these things through the comfort of their own home. The easiest time to get someone is in the position of comfort. Okay, you don't want to intrude on the space, so it's going to be a seamless, ubiquitous endeavor. But I think it's important that we cognizant of this, because it's imperative upon librarians to actually be able to deliver the content to our audience in a manner that suits them. It's moved to audience-centeredness versus librarian-centeredness, if I may put it that way. Okay, when gamifying, we need to bear in mind a few following facts. Firstly, what drives our students? It's important. What drives them? It's the human element. Based on what drives them, that is how we design gamification. Learning objectives, ladies and gentlemen, arbitrary badges work, but they work for a certain time. Badges tied to objectives work even better. Onboarding, it's when you introduce people to your game. It's important so people don't get frustrated. If you sign up for a job and nobody introduces you to your space, to what's required of you, it's going to get frustrating. In the same way, gamification is a complex endeavor. People need to be onboarded. Students will demand choice. Choice in how they pursue how they learn, how they pursue knowledge, and also choices in how they pursue their rewards. You need to be able to guide them, allow them to choose a variety of rewards with a variety of outcomes. Ladies and gentlemen, they will collaborate due to gamification, right? We found this to be the case. They will collaborate with each other about content. They will also collaborate about the game. And they will compete with each other and also come to you and ask you questions, which brings me to the next part. They will demand almost real-time feedback. So set expectations. If you can't give that to them, set expectations upfront during onboarding so that students don't get frustrated waiting. They will demand transparency in how they are scored. They will come and ask you. It's very frustrating if you don't know how your performance measures are scored and why you've got those particular scores. In the same way you're scoring them for each activity or a range of activities that they're doing, they'd like to know how. So be open to students coming and ask you, encourage them to ask you, and give them answers where feasible and where possible. Okay, they will prefer visual rewards versus text-based rewards. It's something that gamification allows us to do, the whole concept of a badge, the concept of leaderboards and graphics and so on, aesthetics. It's right up gamification street, right? Something to be cognizant of is what I call loser's remorse. You get students who fall off. In my case, they fell off. Guy went for a funeral. He came back 2 weeks later. The game had progressed. He stopped winning. So he fell off the game. He stopped participating. Then there were those who weren't getting rewards for like a week at a time maybe. And you could see the engagement was waning, right? And you actually need to enhance this and get them re-engaged. So smaller rewards, ladies and gentlemen, that re-engage people works really, really well. So you need to be cognizant of those who fall off and those who fall through. You can engage both of them, but it's harder to engage those who fall off, okay? Time, I dedicate a lot of time to the gamification project. Even when I gamify in my teaching now, it takes time, but the rewards are worth it, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk gamification now in terms of what tools you can use in your classroom. So there's two categories I want to define. The first one is what you can do the day school starts. And the other one is a bit more longer term, that you need to have some considerable amount of preparation in order to gamify. So we start small and we grow from there. That is the best way to do gamification. You don't need to do the all-in approach like what I did for my research project. What you can do is start off with just badges or leaderboards or just points and grow from there into a full-on experience driven by a storyline and so on and so forth. You could just start with just a storyline and grow from there into badges and points. So first off, let's talk about the easy stuff. Kahoot is an online tool that allows you to run quizzes. Students answer on their devices and they are rewarded based on accuracy and speed. And at the end of each question, at the end of the quiz, people are put onto leaderboards and you can give them a badge or statuses or whatever the case might be. We're going to experience this just now. The second one is Classroom Dojo. Class Dojo is where parents get involved. So you can get these students onto a platform, issue them with badges, both positive and negative, and their parents will get feedback based on the interactions. You can communicate with parents as well. It's a pretty good tool to get parents involved and get them involved in motivating their children. Okay, the next one, ladies and gentlemen, next category, these take a bit of time. One is called Classcraft. There is a free version and there's also a paid version with more gamification features. It does take time to set up and it's to do with quests. It may be more suitable for older students. If you are into gaming, it's very similar to the Minecraft concept. It's very similar to your traditional games that you play where you have adventure and quests. It's something worth exploring, but it does take time. Library Game is a bespoke solution that is being offered out of the country at libraries, but the developers are open to engagements to bring it into the country. It's something that I'm looking to explore as well. So Library Game is pretty useful. It rewards people for doing what they typically do within a library. It integrates with your systems in the library to monitor what people are doing and reward them based on that. So these are just some of the tools that are available combined with the approaches that I've discussed earlier. Okay. So ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move on to Kahoot, right? Thank you for engaging. I will see you in the Q&A session. Irene's going to pause the video at this point and allow you to scan this QR code. It takes you to the address at the bottom, kahoot.it. And we're going to run a quick Kahoot on this presentation, right? And at the end, we'll talk about a particular reward that's going to be made available to the person who wins. And I look forward to engaging in the Q&A. And we'll chat soon. Thank you.